The Florida Aviation Database, or the FAD, was developed by FDOT in cooperation with the FAA, the Florida Airports Council, and the sponsors of Florida's public use airports. The FAD is the central repository for Florida aviation system data and is used for a wide variety of activities, including funding requests, emergency notification, disaster response coordination, data management, document storage and transfer, and licensing information. When you log into the FAD, you are brought to the Florida Aviation Database switchboard as seen here. The switchboard contains alerts and messages related to facility status changes for Florida's airports. On the left-hand side, you have the ability to select My Account, which will bring you to your user information where you can change your contact information as well as your password. If you have any bookmarks, those will display here. You can also manage your bookmarks by using the Manage button next to My Bookmarks. Finally, at the bottom is the Applications section. This training focuses on the Integrated Facility Module, or the IFM. By selecting the Integrated Facility Module, you will be brought to the IFM search page. It includes basic facility search inputs such as facility ownership, private, public, or military, facility use, all, public, or private, facility type, airport, heliport, seaplane base, ultralight, district, associated city, county, CFAS region, NIPIAS number, facility ID, facility name, facility status, active, all, inactive, closed, planned, expired, or proposed, runway length, less than, greater than, or equal to a specific runway length, fly-in community, only air parks or only non-air parks, or show all, Part 139, show all, Part 139 facilities, non-Part 139 facilities, Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, commercial service airports, show all, only commercial services, only non-commercial services, license category, show all, licensed, registered, licensed and registered, exempt, temporary, last inspection date, next inspection date, original license date, license expiration date, original registration date, registration expiration date, all of which will let you search for before, on, or after a specific date. Based on the inputs one provides here, you can then search for specific facilities. The default list prior to performing any search is all public use facilities in Florida, which at the time of this recording includes 129 facilities. Note that this number may change as new public use facilities are added or removed from Florida's aviation system. You have the ability to load selected options, so if you were to click on an airport, and we'll use the top airport as an example, clicking on Everglades Airport, if you click Load Selected, it will load that data for that airport only. However, if you select Load All, it will bring you to the first airport alphabetically, but at the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you will be able to toggle between all airports that were loaded in the search. If you were to go back and select the first 5 airports, and then click Load Selected, you would again have an alphabetical list with those 5 airports loaded in the list. You will have the ability to toggle between all airports that you have selected. We will now go back to the basic facility search screen. In addition to the basic search, if you have any saved searches, those will appear in saved lists. To go back to the basic search, select Basic Search. For the purposes of this training, we will only be selecting all public use facilities. Then, by selecting Load All, you are brought into the Facility tab. As you can see on the left side of the page, there are multiple data tabs available, including General, Runways and Helipads, Facility Requirements, Services, Remarks, Navcom, FBO, Schedule, Documents and Links, and Profile Data. At the top, there are also multiple tabs. We are currently on the Facility tab that lists contacts, statistics, and pavement on the right. We will be going through all the tabs on the left and all the tabs on the top in today's training. Of note, depending on your level of access in the Florida Aviation Database, other tabs may be available, such as the Joint Automated Capital Improvement Program, or JCIP tab, as well as the Disaster Preparedness tab. Please note, however, that not all users have access to these, as there is secure information housed within them. Also of note, FDOT has provided a separate JCIP training module available in the Florida Aviation Database and provides statewide specific training on the Disaster Preparedness module. On the Facility Information section of the Facility tab, the airport's general information is shown. It includes information such as the Universal Airport ID, the NIPIAS number, facility status, FDOT and FAA facility names, sponsor name, the facility type, the location ID, the FAA site number, ownership and usage, the Strategic Intermodal Systems or SIS status, Part 139 certification, commercial service hub type, residential air park, vendor number, DUNS number, if available, if it is a discretionary airport or non-commercial landing fee facility, and whether or not the airport's local government is qualified as a Rural Economic Development Initiative facility or READY facility. Under the inspection registration information, it will detail the license category, the date of the last inspection, the original licensing date, and the expiration date of the current license. For the facility's physical address, it will include the address, the phone number, the fax, and the website for the airport. Under geographic data, it will include the associated city, as well as the distance and direction to that associated city, the county name, the section, township, and range, the airport reference point latitude, longitude, and elevation, the acreage of the facility, what FDOT district the facility is in, what FAA Airport District Office region the facility is in, and what region of the continuing Florida Aviation System planning process the facility is in. There is also an aerial image included to provide a graphical perspective for the facility. On the left side of the screen, if you select Runways and Helipads, this section provides detailed information on runway pavements and obstructions. This data is taken from the FDOT airport inspections that are completed on an annual basis. Information is provided by runway and individual runway end when specific data to a runway end is available. As you can see here, it shows the runway ID, the runway status, landing area type, surface condition, surface type, surface treatment, length and width of the runway, and any remarks related to the runway, including the FAR Part 77 category, information about the approach ratio, primary surface, transitional surface, and the runway safety area as noted during your FDOT airport inspection. It also details the design aircraft weight and the gross weight capacity for different wheel configurations, as well as the pavement classification number or PCN for that runway. The Surfaces tab will detail obstructions to any of the Part 77 surfaces, which will include what the object is, the latitude and longitude, an indication as to whether the location was determined through a survey or an estimate, lateral distance from centerline, direction from centerline, height of the object, if it is fixed by function or if it is on a frangible mount, if it is marked, the distance from the runway, the direction from the runway end, The runway ID, if an aeronautical study is associated with this object, it will be included here. And if there is a determination from an aeronautical study, that will also be included. Going down, the General tab for the specific runway ends shows the latitude and longitude of the runway end, as well as the runway end elevation, the traffic pattern for that runway, and the magnetic alignment of that runway. Next to the General tab is the Approaches and Approach Aid tab. This shows lighting associated with that runway, whether or not it has a visual glide slope indicator, runway end identifier lights, approach lights, the threshold crossing height, the visual glide slope angle, the runway visual range RVR, the runway visibility value, and whether or not the runway has centerline or touchdown zone lights. If there is an instrument approach associated with that runway end, it will be shown here to the right. It will also show the type of approach and the different visibility requirements associated with the approach. The next tab under the runway end is the Obstruction Data tab. This will detail FAR Part 77 obstruction data. For this, it will show the obstruction type, if it is a close-in obstruction, the displacement distance, if applicable, the Part 77 approach slope, if there is a controlling marked obstruction and if it is lighted, the height above the runway, the distance from the runway, the direction from the runway end, and the controlling offset. Next to that is the Markings tab, which will detail all the markings associated with that runway end. The fields included on this tab will vary depending on the runway surface and approaches. You will see the type of markings the runway has, whether the markings are precision, non-precision, or visual, as well as the condition and color of the markings. For the runway designation markings, it will detail if there is a parallel runway associated with it, if the runway designation markings are centered, the height, width, and distance between numerals of the runway designation marking, if they are proportional, the line width, distance to threshold, if they are outlined in black, and if they contain glass beads. If there is a threshold bar, it will also be indicated here. For runway centerline markings, this tab will indicate if they are painted in white, if they are physically centered in the middle of the runway, if they extend the entire length of the runway, the length and gap of the stripes, the width of the stripes, and the distance to the runway designation marking, if the stripes are outlined in black, as well as if the centerline stripes have glass beads. The next tab is the Lighting tab. Like the markings, this tab will again vary based on runway surface and instrument approach. If there are runway edge lights, it will be indicated here. For runway end lights, it will indicate if runway end lights are present, if they are perpendicular to the extended runway centerline, the distance the runway end lights are from the runway end, the number of runway end lights, information about the outmost light, such as if it is in line with the other edge lights, if the inboard color is red and the outboard color green. For remaining lighting, this section will detail if they are in line with the outmost lights, what the distance between the lights in the group is, the inboard color and the outboard color. It will also detail the mounting height for the lights and whether or not they are flush or on frangible mounts. For runway edge lights, it will detail the intensity, the color, the mounting height, whether or not they are flush or on frangible mounts, and the distance between lights. The last tab is the Safety tab, which details declared distances. It will list the takeoff run available, the takeoff distance available, the accelerated stop distance available, and the landing distance available. Also, if the airport has an engineered material arresting system, or EMAS, installed, that will be indicated here as well. All of these tabs, General, Approaches, and Approach Aids, Obstruction Data, Markings, Lightings, and Safety, will be included for each specific runway end for each runway at the facility. Going back up the page, if you select Taxiways next to the Surfaces tab, when you get to the Taxiways tab, it will provide detailed information about taxiways at the airport. For each taxiway, it will show the taxiway designation, whether or not it is paved, the width of the taxiway, if it is lighted, a mounting height of the lights, and whether or not those lights are flush or on frangible mounts. For all holding position markings associated with each taxiway, you will find information related to the direction from the runway. If it is painted in yellow, the number of solid lines, the line width of the solid lines, the vertical space between the solid lines, the number of dashed lines, the vertical line width for the dashed lines, the space between the dashed lines, the horizontal line width for the dashed lines, and the horizontal space between the dashed lines. It will indicate whether or not the solid line is on the aircraft hold side, if it is the entire width of the taxiway, the distance from the hold position to the center line of the runway, if the hold position marking has glass beads, and whether or not it is outlined in black. Again, all of this information will be included for every taxiway associated with the runways. Going back to the menu on the left, and by clicking on Facility Requirements, this provides basic information related to FDOT licensing standards. As you can see, it will detail whether or not fire rescue equipment is located on the field. It will also indicate whether or not the field is in usable condition, if the airport operating area, or AOA, is secure, if the airport has been abandoned, if a wind indicator is available and lighted, and if a segmented circle is available. It will also detail whether a public phone and displayed license are both available. This will also include the ability for the inspector to include comments related to each of these items. On the Services tab on the left-hand menu, this details various services available at each facility. The first service detailed is fuel, and it will indicate whether or not certain types of fuel are available, if it is self-serve or full service. It will also detail the presence of minor or major airframe repair. It will also detail minor and major power plant service available, whether or not high or low pressure bottled oxygen is available, high or low bulk oxygen is available, and the available types of transient storage, such as buoys, hangars, and tie-downs. At the bottom, it will detail information related to other services available at the facility, such as aerial surveying, air ambulance, air freight, aircraft rental, aircraft sales, avionics, beach gear, car rental, cargo, charter, courtesy car, crop dusting, gliders, glider towing, flight instruction, public internet available, lodging and distance to lodging, parachute jumping area, restaurant and distance to restaurant, whether or not restrooms are available, and the availability of taxis. On the left-hand menu, Remarks, this will detail and list the remarks from FAA Form 5010 or the Airport Master Record. All remarks included on the Airport Master Record should be listed here in the Remarks section of the FAD. Under Navcom, this provides communication information for flight service stations, weather, and others. As you can see here, it provides the identification as well as the name and phone number for the flight service station. If the flight service station is on airport, the phone number and radio frequency for any automated weather system available, the frequency for approach control, the frequency for airport terminal information service, clearance delivery, air traffic control tower, the common traffic advisory frequency or CTAF, departure control, ground control, and Unicom. It will also detail information about the approaches, if there are any at the airport, what sectional chart the airport can be found on, what en route chart the airport can be found on, and if the airport has a beacon and its color. Under the FBO section, it will include detailed information for each FBO at the airport as provided by the airport staff. It will include the FBO name, the contact person for the FBO, the radio frequency if they have one, the FBO's address, phone number, and fax numbers, email for the FBO, website for the FBO manager, as well as any notes associated with the FBO. This tab will also detail fuel available at the FBO. Under the Schedule tab, this will detail information for the beacon lighting schedule, as well as the hours the facility is attended by airport staff. Under the Documents and Links tab, you will see links to various airport documents, including historical inspection records, licenses, airport sketches, and master plans. As detailed here, they will be included under folders. You can see Airport Layout Plan, Airport Sketch, FAA Form 7480-1, any security plan approvals that have been granted, the airport license, any airspace determination letters associated with the airport, inspection record for the airport, site approval, the airport master plan, FAA Form 5010-5, any property rights documentation associated with the airport, and any registration certifications and reports for the airport. Remember, many of these items can and do change on a frequent basis. The license and inspection records change every year with each new inspection and licensing of the facility. Two other extremely important documents that change on a periodic basis in the document section are the Airport Layout Plan and the Airport Master Plan. Remember, anytime you update your Airport Layout Plan or Airport Master Plan, make sure you upload the most recent document to this section. FDOT district and central office staff often refer to the documents included here, and it is imperative that airports ensure they have the most current documents included in the FAD. The last tab under the Facilities section is the Profile Data. Profile Data provides a narrative on the history of the airport, ownership, and other anecdotal information. Sections include history, airport organization and operating structure, airport role, activity and facility use, enplanement, operations and based aircraft data, and aviation activities supported. It is imperative that airports look at this information and update it as appropriate. It is currently being used by FDOT to update the individual airport profiles and will be used by FDOT again in future projects over the next few years. At the top, under the Contacts tab, this will detail all contacts associated with the specific facility. The contact information is included for airport management, emergency response, board members, FDOT representatives, as well as others. It is extremely important to keep this information current. FDOT districts and central office rely heavily on the information contained in this section. Great examples of how this contact information is used and how important it is that it remains updated include identifying airport representatives for emergency and disaster situations, such as hurricanes and communicable diseases. In 2014's Ebola outbreak and the Zika threats over the last few years, FDOT's aviation and spaceport staff referred to the contact information included in the FAD to identify appropriate airport staff to assist in outreach and coordination on statewide communicable disease planning efforts. During the hurricane season, as storms are approaching the state, central office and district staff, as well as statewide emergency operations staff, need to have updated contact information, as airports are an essential element of disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. FDOT staff often spend hours reaching out to airports during times of emergency to ensure proper coordination in advance, during, and after a disaster or emergency, and having the correct information in the FAD Contacts tab ensures that precious time is not wasted calling the wrong people or searching for the right contact information. If FDOT can't get a hold of you quickly and efficiently, you might miss out on vital emergency coordination information. Additionally, if FDOT has information to disseminate regarding funding, such as new funding availability or excess funds for which FDOT is looking for projects to apply it to, if your FAD contacts are not up to date, you might miss out on that information, while a competing airport who is vigilant about updating the FAD contact information will get the information and be able to immediately act, taking advantage of every opportunity provided. It is really in your and your customers' and tenants' best interest to make sure this information is as current as possible. There is also a Statistics tab. The Statistics tab details historical and forecast information for general aviation-based aircraft and general aviation operations, and for commercial service airports, commercial service operations, and commercial service enplanements. There are multiple aspects of statistics. There is historic data for each of the data elements. There is an FDOT forecast, and there is also a model trend. If your historical information for any of these data elements is incorrect, it will influence both the model trend as well as the FDOT forecast. These FDOT forecasts are considered when allocating funding to each district every year, as well as provided crucial input information into the development of the Florida Aviation System Plan and other key FDOT aviation studies and documents. The last tab under the Integrated Facility module is the Pavement tab. This provides links to the FDOT District Pavement Reports, the Statewide Pavement Report, and the Airport Pavement Inspection Reports. Under Facility Links, you will see a link to the Pavement Inspection Report, which is specific to each airport. You will also see links to an ALP sketch, network definitions specific to the facility selected, and the airport-specific maintenance and rehabilitation plan, as well as a link to the pavement classification number. On the right-hand side, you can see the district pavement reports for all 7 FDOT districts, as well as the cumulative statewide pavement report. All of this data comes from the Statewide Aviation Pavement Management Program that consists of Pavement Condition Index, or PCI inspections for each airport in the program. These PCI inspections are conducted every 3 years. The information and inspection reports developed during these inspections provides a timeline and ultimately justification for funding requests to both the FAA and FDOT for pavement-related projects. In addition to developing the Pavement Condition Index for pavements on airport, as well as the suggested maintenance and rehabilitation needs, associated costs are also provided as part of this program. The Maintenance and Rehabilitation Plan provides a 10-year maintenance and rehabilitation plan and identifies pavement suitable for microsurfacing, mill and overlay, reconstruction, and concrete pavement restoration. The district and statewide reports identify the conditions of all pavements either in a district or statewide, as well as identify maintenance and rehabilitation needs at the district and statewide levels, and the associated cost estimates for those. On the left-hand side of this section, you will see a link to historical reports. This section provides previous pavement inspection information for historical comparison and reference. In order to gain more information about FDOT's Dynamic Pavement Management Program, consider attending the FDOT Pavement Inspection and Distress Repair training course that is held every fall. The pavement training course consists of 2 parts. The first 2 days focus on airfield pavement inspections, with the first day in the classroom and the second day in the field. The second part of the training focuses on distress repair, again with the first day in the classroom and the second day in the field. Students are allowed to attend one or both parts. For more information on the FDOT Pavement Management Training, please go to fdot.gov/aviation/pavement.